5-year track record of success. Frank currently serves as Vice President Development at RideKC Development Corporation. Frank's role includes an emphasis on workforce development, job access, and public policy advisory, which includes working with key businesses, civic and community stakeholders, taking an active role in transportation, workforce development, and real estate development committees throughout the region. So with that, Frank, I'll let you have the stage.
Thank you very much. Can anybody hear me okay?
Yes,
good. Okay, great. Well, thank you guys for asking us to come out. I know I'm your second choice, but I'll get over that. And I'll do my best to be entertaining. So thank you all again for being here. It's always cool to learn about different organizations that you never knew existed. So I did some research on you guys locally and nationally. Some pretty cool stuff that you guys are doing. So I will try to be somewhat interesting. Sometimes when you do this for a living, you get kind of wonky. So I'll try to keep it as high level as possible. I'm not sure, Rose, how you want this to work. Do you want to do a presentation and Q&A, or you can ask questions as they go through? Either way works for me.
What do you guys feel? Do you want us at the end?
Yeah, we'll do Q&A at the end.
Yep.
Okay, all right, great. So, what's that? Okay, so
I was just affirming. I was.
We're good. All right. So yeah. So we're talking about the RideKC Development Corporation, which I would basically call the corporation just for word's sake. It's been around for 4 years. We were founded in February 2018 because of two things. One was the streetcar that came on board in May of 2016, and the ancillary economic development that came, I think, about $3 billion or so of organic economic development growth. And the question we were asking at the ATA was, well, what if we could steer that growth in a way that supported not only our policy goals, but also a way that could make the city a better, more livable place? The second thing was some real estate acquisitions that were asked by the city of Kansas City for us to make around the same time. And we found out internally that there really wasn't a mechanism within the KCATA to properly manage the development side and real estate acquisition side. So our board of directors tasked myself and a guy named Brian Starner, who's the president of the corporation, to create an economic development corporation. And the board had decided at the time that it had to be separate from the transit agency side. So we were given a new name, a new charter, separate board of directors, separate budget, and even a separate office. So for the last 4 years, while we are technically ATA employees, we pretty much work for the corporation on a service contract. And our work really doesn't bleed into what the ATA does at a certain level. So that's a very quick over how we got here. And all right. So what we really try to do is be very innovative in how we improve that connection between transportation and development. Ideally, they would go together, but in Kansas City, I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, a lot of our development, it's been very transactional, not really thinking about the long-term impact, thinking more silos instead of systems. It becomes very haphazard, which can be very confusing for the built environment. So what we try to do is take new ideas and tools to solve some of these issues in the communities that we serve. The ATA actually covers 7 counties on both sides of the state line, and where we focus on the development piece, the workforce access and transit are all involved because they all interconnect, and transit is very, very clear. So it makes an ideal space for us to work in. So the goal really is to create a sustainable cycle of investment and accessible growth in KC, so that transit facilitates better development, but development also makes better transportation. And then they, like I said, they should marry like this, but we've done it this way. So in your basic economics 101 class, the first question is, where's your labor going to come from? But in Kansas City, we tend to bad habit of building things out in greenfield developments. Outside the land is cheap and they get it done. And when it's finished, they go, okay, we need people to come by public transit. And we're like, well, why'd you call us now? And they go, well, your transit sucks. And it's like, well, it's not as transit isn't bad. It's just we've not been at the forefront of the discussion. And we think there might be a better approach to say, okay, the land may be cheaper out here, but it's going to cost you more if you can't get employees. And we saw the intermodal facility out there in Gardner. We did our best to get something going, but no one's going to ride 2 hours on a bus. So part of what our role, part of what I do specifically is try to work the private sector, private developers, elected officials and say, let's talk about why are we building on here? What is this? What's this stage for? What are the ordinances? What are the rules we can do? What are the policies we can put in place to make this a better, more transit accessible environment? Because we find if there's transportation by the jobs, more people go to work, more business hire, they make more money, more taxes are generated, and it makes for a better community. So we're really trying to take a very holistic approach to how we approach transit development. As in the past, it was basically you pay your fare, I go somewhere. Now we're really trying to do what we call what we call transit-oriented development, or TOD. It's not a new concept. It's been around for a while, but it used to be basically anything on rail. That was the initial design for TOD. But now we've kind of modified it as others to really consider any kind of form of transportation, any kind of mobility. It could be bus, rail, bike, it could be streetcar, it could be e-bikes, it could be scooters. But the idea is that transportation is that fulcrum between all the stuff in the community. In Kansas City, Missouri, we know for a fact that 42% of an household income is on housing and transportation. So we can design communities built around transportation. Maybe cut that transit cost in half. That's 20% or so of someone's income going back into their family, things that they use that are more productive. Well, we're not saying that you want to, and I'll never say we want to get rid of cars, because that's just stupid. But we're saying if you choose not to use your car, what are the options we can create that you can get to work, get to play, school, healthcare, wherever, using our system. And we think if it's intentional in how you design it around the DoD model with the housing, jobs, education, healthcare model, we think you make it a more livable workplace city. You can make a denser city. With more density, obviously comes more building, more construction, which helps you guys hire more people in your organization and your profession, your place to go and do work. So it's really kind of city building is what we're doing here with the corporation. So we look at, as I mentioned, it supports local community access, location efficiency, because you can get specification of the land. These are the choices, because it doesn't have to be single family, it could be mixed use, it could be duplexes, apartments, doesn't matter. You want to give people the option to do things, because the great cities have those different options. You look at zoning, it's value capture. The land becomes more valuable because you can do more space per acre, more money per acre, makes more money, makes more revenue. It's a great placemaking concept, in fact, that you're creating stability and roots from the transit systems being there. Strengthens the community, the networks, because you have a denser community, you have a safer community. The great cities of the world are compact, they're diverse, they're very vital. Even in New York City, Chicago, San Francisco, London, Milan, there's just an energy there that you don't get anywhere else in a city that's not dense. It's done right, and we think we're doing it right. Cost of living reductions, easy access to work, improved community health. The thing about TOD is in public transit, that matter, people tend to think that, well, I don't ride public transit, why should I care? Well, you may not ride it, but the person that's serving your work for you, they may use it. And the idea is that it's a collective benefit. The best example I can use, if you live in a neighborhood that has a great school system, but you have no children in the school, you benefit from the property tax values and about your home because you have excellent school in your system. So any of the great cities, again, they're going to have great public transportation just because that's considered a benefit to a city. Again, I'll go to New York City, DC, Denver, LA. They've got great transit systems. Everyone doesn't use it, of course, but it's a net benefit. We're trying to get the World Cup here, and make the World Cup as transportation. And quite frankly, we don't have the connectivity regionally that we probably should have. And that's on us. But if Kansas City wants to be the city I think it wants to be, we have to address the transportation issue, not for me selfishly, but just because it makes sense for the city and its growth for the future. So I'm going to take a step back to go forward just about the ATA. A lot of people don't realize that we are created by Congress. We are not a city agency. We were created for a bi-state compact in 1966 out of the Mass Transportation Act of 1964. And it had one mission, was to connect people to opportunity through transportation. So in this compact, has a broad range of powers. We are a federal district, so we can, on paper at least, we'll run the airports, ports, rail, buses, bikes, whatever. Now, obviously, we do not run the airport, nor do we run the streetcar, nor do we run the port, but that just gives you a framework of what we could do. And so also in that compact, we fall under the Interstate Commerce Clause. So we can cross jurisdictions, states, counties, city lines. If we did not have that ordinance in our compact, if Kansas City made its own bus company, it has to stop at the state line in Kansas. You got to get off the bus, hop on a bus in Kansas. So this allows us to move freely throughout the region in a more seamless way. In addition to that, and these powers, we have economic development tools that we can use. So we can condemn property. We can offer sales tax exemptions on construction materials. We can stage land. We can offer conduit bond financing so long as it furthers the cause of transportation throughout the region. So there's an enormous amount of power that we've had since 1966. It was till 4 years ago that Brian and myself were tasked to take those powers, to take a deeper dive in the compact, to basically bring it to life, is what we've done. And so the challenge that we're having now, you guys are probably keenly aware, our city is too big. In the 1950s, there was 81 square miles, had 500,000 people. Now in 2022, it's still 500,000 people, but 326 square miles. So you've got a city that really can't afford itself due to the sprawl and the growth. This isn't a criticism of sprawl or growth at all. It's really a question of, was it smart growth? Was it managed growth? Did you think 50 years down the line that the bill would have to come due? And because of that, Dennis Strait, who you see here, who actually is one of our partners, has a great presentation. He's Building City Can't Afford. He talks about that and the challenge of responsibility. And so part of what we decided to do with this corporation is, okay, because we cover 7 states, because 7 counted 2 states, we're going to take a broader view of things. We've got some of the tools and ability to assist not only the city of Kansas City, but our region in trying to solve some of these problems. So by creating the corporation, we can leverage our resources region-wide. So on our corridors, our strategic locations, because when we make any decision, I can't just look at one part of the city. I've got to look at the entire region and how does it all connect? Because if I make a transit line go here, or build a TLD piece here, I have to know where it's going to go. The best way I can explain it is, I'm old enough, I just skip rocks on the lake, and you skip the rock and there's ripples from the rock. But instead of looking at the ripples, you're looking at the rocks sticking to the bottom of the lake. Well, we have to look at where the ripples go. So we've had a very unique position, and with our federal and congressional authority, we can do a lot of things throughout the region that certain cities can't, because we're not bound by a state line. We're not bound by a county line. Our playgrounds are regional, but we also recognize that City of Kansas City is the heartbeat of that region and has to be dense. And so we focus there a lot, but we do projects all throughout the region. And a lot of these people are reaching out to us because we have access to the tools and things to make things go with a lot of the kind of the red tape, I would say. So most people just probably confused now, wondering, okay, how are these guys tied to the ATA? What do they do? Who's their boss? Who they report to? This chart here really just shows the KCATA is really the board of commissioners. We've got 10 commissioners, 5 in Missouri, 5 in Kansas, that run the KCATA. In the compact, it says they're in charge of operations, construction of the company. So what many people think is the KCATA, it's really the transit agency. And they manage the transit services, max lines, mobility, all those things. And for a while, people kept thinking that we reported to the transit agency, which we do not. We do real estate development projects, job access, and policy stuff. That's the board's mission. So what this really looks like, and I think it's pretty easy for you guys to understand, is at the very top, again, is the board of commissioners. They've got the power by the charter. The transit agency, it does not. The bus company does not. They are a function and created by the board of commissioners. As I said, they offer the transit service, bus service, max lines. And then to the right is the corporation, which is board creation. So we report directly to the board of directors, to the corporation, through our board on the RideKC Corporation board. And anything that we do is board sanctioned at the board's decision, because those powers rest with the KCATA. Think of us as kind of like the Rangers. We go out and find projects, stage them, develop them, sort them, and they go through our process. So for a real quick example, someone comes with a great idea to do a project on Main Street. And so myself and Brian, we have a 2-week window to vet it, which goes to our development committee. And at that point, if they say it's a good deal, then we bring that developer in and they speak to our board. If our board approves it, it then goes to the KCHA board for the final. The board wants it, then we start using our tools to make it happen. If they don't, we can either tell them to go back and change some things, or the board just says it's just a flat no. So it's a very open, transparent process. And we want it to be that way. So because any fees that we earn, say from financing projects, they will then be used to go back to the KCHA to cover costs of different things, to say, such as the zero fare program, which HA has. A lot of that capital will be going to make sure that thing stays sustainable, not only sustainable for Kansas City, Missouri, but also sustainable throughout the region at what they choose to expand the program. So because the KSA is not a taxing authority, so any money that they earn comes from sales taxes, contracts, different things. But being that we're quasi-governmental, we can go generate revenues, which is part of the corporation. And so that's what we're tasked to do. In its simplest forms, consider us basically a private company within a public entity, so we can take the best and most efficient uses of the private sector, but also the benefit of the collective of the public sector. But we pretty much move on our own terms. Like I said, we're authorized directly to the board, and that gives a lot of latitude to do things that, quite frankly, the HA never could do just because of the way it was structured and put together. So what we do is we engage in TOD projects. So we can look to fund projects along our corridors using different tools. We have a job access program. We've got a pilot I'm doing in Cass County right now for healthcare deserts and job access that has generated. We managed to raise over $700,000 in private capital to fund this project, and now it's getting interest from the state of Missouri for some of the money, of the ARPA monies and different things that are available to expand this thing statewide. On the policy side, we're doing a lot of work. We're getting ordinances changed. The Urban Outfitter project a year or so ago out in Wyandotte County, we were able to go meet with the lieutenant governor and get carve-outs for incentives, everything to fund transit directly to get people to work. We probably got right now over $500 million worth of potential private capital looking to invest east of Truce on the corridors, Prospect Corridor, and some of the Truce Corridor, because they know that working with us, we can stabilize it, a development, we can be a catalyst for development, we can de-risk it and get that private capital more certainty that there's a return with having the corporation and AT as our partner. So there's things that we can do because we control the corridors from the development side that makes it very attractive for private investors to come work with us, because we're not a typical development corporation. We are more facilitators of development. We got the tools. In some cases, we have the land. In some cases, we don't. But our ability to do some things that a lot of agents can't do, and because our purpose is clear, we're only working for transit, TOD, and like I said, job access and policy. It's very clear. If anyone wants to work with us, what our mission is, because we have policy goals, and so if you what you do is meet our public policy goals through application, then we will work with you. We have 6 criteria. If you get 5 out of 6, it's like, thanks for coming by, but we're not going to work with you because we're not an incentive agency. We're not going to be doing deals for deal's sake. If they don't fulfill our policy goals of density, equity, affordable or attainable housing, then we're not people to talk to, and we're fine with that. We're very specific on our purpose. We want to re-densify Kansas City, Missouri. Our goal is, we think we should have 800,000 people in Kansas City, Missouri, at least. We've got 500,000, so we got a lot of work to do. But this city does not home. This region does not function if the bodies aren't there. You can't work outside in. You've got to go inside out. So part of what we do is to try to be innovative and be more responsive, is that we use a lot of data. This is from a project that I worked with Dennis Strait at Gould Evans and Graham Smith. We get a lot of calls from people saying, we want to come here, come do this. And in the past, we say, okay, sure, we'll put a bus out there. And then a year later, we go, man, this is a bad idea. And we cancel it. But now with this information, we can look at these concentric circles and say, okay, we're looking at this area right here. And the darker the color, the more it's ready for traditional infrastructure for transit. It's got the carve outs, it's got the ordinances, and we can work there. But if you look at it, say Longview down here, we would say thank you, but no, because you're not prepared to have a real transportation discussion, you're not serious about it. So it allows us to not waste taxpayers' money. It allows us to make better decisions based on design policies, land use policies. So nothing is left to chance, because in the space we operate, especially in the private side, we can't do things by chance. It has to be measured, it has to be metrics, it's got to return on investment. Because like I said, we have to run this operation like a business. So we are tasked to be self-sustaining. We got an initial allocation from the ATA in 2018. We've got no money since, so we have to go basically earn our keep. And that's fine with me. I think it's more fun that way, but it allows us to make, I think, more efficient decisions and really kind of cut through the BS of things. That's why we invest in the data, because we wanted to know. And so, you can go to our website, and there's a whole report we did for the city of Kansas City on the city audit that we did with Gould Evans. And it talks all about the region, why TOD matters, what it can do. And in this study, I found this very interesting. We did a look at 10,000 different addresses east of Trooster 435, and we figured out that we could get a mix of housing, single family, duplexes, fourplexes, apartments, within half mile or mile of our current bus lines. With intention, we think in the next 10 years, we could bring 100,000 more residents and another $30 million in property tax revenue to the city of Kansas City every year. And so that's why we look at TOD. We know that we can reduce costs, we get people there and make it make sense. And so this was given to the city of Kansas City. Will they implement it or not? I don't know, but that doesn't mean we can't do it. And we're working on that right now. So like I said, you can go to our site, the full report is there. We just feel like investing in our corridors in certain locations, we can help the people that we serve, which are riders. That transit is infrastructure. I'll say that, I'll leave that all the time. We've been beating that drum for 2 years now, and we're starting to see the development community trying to realize it matters. You know, the streetcar is being extended to the riverfront, over to the plaza. You're gonna see about $10 billion of economic spinoff from that. And Brian and I are actively engaged on Main Street, working with different developers. Just got another one, give us a call. They want us to help either finance it or stage it for transit. So all that revenue that we generate goes back to the ATA to make transit better, to expand it, because we're not bound by the lines. We can take that money, go anywhere it needs to go. And the streetcar, like I said, it's been a great success because it was a statement of intent and it forced everyone in public transit to get better. You know, we think that TOD with mixed income neighborhoods is a solution to the housing choice. The attainability of a housing, and we think we can help facilitate. As I said, we're not developers, but we control 13.5 million riders in all the corridors, and we think we can make a difference in those decisions at a level. But also that it makes sense to invest in our corridors. You put in $62 million investment on Prospect or Truce or Main Street, which when streetcar comes will leave. That's a statement of intent to developers. Okay, their state is needing for business. We know that when the max line comes, we see a 20% reduction in crime. We know that residents come, the builders come, the politicians pay attention, and then the police pay attention. And the more dense areas, the safer it is, because people know who should and should not be there. So it's a whole holistic approach how we do things. We like to try the workforce piece. We look at childcare. All these things matter in a post-pandemic environment. If you're not looking at transportation, housing, childcare as part of your whole employment strategy, you're losing, because the ones that are winning are. I'm going to advocate and invest in those areas that need the most. Like I said, the East Side, KC, is probably the most incentive-laden part of our city, but no one invests private capital because it's too risky. But by this program that Brian and I have created, like I said, have $500 million of private capital in our pipeline, wanting to build housing, to build businesses, wanting to build a corridor. Congressman Cleaver's bi-state green corridor on Independence Avenue is another one that we're heavily involved in. That's going to bring possibly up to $1 billion of federal money over the next 10 years from Village West all the way to Independence Square. And they want to have, again, the access to the housing, development, the jobs. And we've got the tools because we can cross jurisdiction on both state lines. So we're very, very involved in these things. We've got a developer out of DC, wants $50 million about housing. Another developer wants to do $250 million worth of housing, 1,000 units. They don't care where, they just want to do it off a transit line. So this is something that's been done across the country in pieces, but never put in place like we've done it here at the corporation. In fact, I spoke at Replica Software Company used at their annual meeting, and their chief policy officer has asked us to come to Los Angeles this fall to speak at the Milken Institute on what we're doing here in Kansas City. So it's gotten attention from HUD, the FTA, the White House, other transit agencies. So we've got something pretty special here that I think kind of fits our whole entrepreneur vibe in KC and being different. And we say, why now? I guess we're post-pandemic, I hope. But the environment's changed. The job market's changed. People are trying to figure out, is it hybrid? Is it in office? I mean, this whole thing today, when I'm doing a video, there's people there. So public transit is different. What does that look like? So people get access to work, that becomes even more paramount. We need economic activity. We talked third and grand. That's going to be a $70 million project. We're looking at a project work at 10th and Main. We're trying to work on. We've got, like I said, $500 million over on the east side we're working on. And we've got more and more people calling for different things. So, and they all want to be around transit lines. So we think that working with us, we can help with the city, what they need to do, we need to get done. And like I said before, we have zero fare now, and we got to keep it going because it seems to be fairly popular. How do you finance it? So we basically monetize everything at the corporation. So we do the financing for projects, we do consulting fees, all typically we can earn money. We get private funds, we get federal grants. The idea is that we can be self-sufficient, so that we probably will be maybe what's it 2022, probably about fourth quarter 2023. We'll be totally self-sufficient. We'll be taking no more public money at any kind ever. So again, you get the benefit and efficiency of the private sector, but also the access to the tools for the public. So it's actually perfect. It's actually the perfect public-private partnership. And if there's no time, but now, why not? We've got the congressional authority to do this, to work across the region and really to help the people that we always serve, which are riders in the neighborhoods. And so if we can stitch it all together in a way that makes sense for everybody, and we know it's 7 counties, 7 different environments, but we have the ability and flexibility to do these things, and no one else is doing it. So if not us, who? So that's the high level discussion of what we do at the corporation. I did my best not to be too wonky, and I hope if I did, I apologize. But I've spent 4 years knee deep in this stuff, and it's really exciting work. I mean, it's fun to cross the region, and so much happening going on to really, like I said, city build. We've got Dennis Strait and his team as part of our advisory team. Kevin Klinkenberg from Midtown KC, Harwick Law Firm they helped us construct the bond financing piece. Chris Sally, another developer, is on our team. So we try to find people really smarter than us to help put this team together. We probably spent 2 years just working on policy and strategy before we even went live with it. And that's sending it to a lot of transit CEOs that I've gotten over the last 6 years across the country, take a look at it, pick it apart. I've traveled to different agencies, seeing how they're doing things. So has Brian, to make sure this thing went live, that it would be solid, it'd be defensible. It had to be based on policy first, with a strategy, a system, not a silo, and that it made sense for everybody. So it had to be transparent also. We wanted to make sure there were no secrets. So like my office on 30th and True Street, here's our office. And, I always tell people, you paid for it. So you want to come anytime. It's not, there's no secrets over here. So, but that's all I've got. Is there any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
We had a few. Ken Scott, who is our vice president, wants to know if you are the ones who are seeking the right-of-ways and easement for the downtown train.
Yeah, over there about off of 30 grand.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know what I don't even know what the downtown train is. You guys know what that is? All right, then.
Or the streetcar, the district one.
I'm not sure. Ken asked the
Ken's
question.
got it.
So as you're taking it into North Kansas City where the new soccer stadium is being built, is that your team that's making all of those procurements?
Yeah, we are, as us, 4KC, and some other investors, we're working on the riverfront to get down to, I guess it's Valley, Valley now. So yeah, and then on 30 grand, where we're developing, we're doing some stuff with the bike ped bridge. We had some things moved around. I think we turned Oak around, I believe, with the city to make it easier. When the streetcar line goes by that property, there's space for people. So if you don't get clipped and you walk out the front door, and also for the bike riders coming off the Grand Bridge. So we made some changes with the city's assistance to get that done. The North Kansas City study, we're helping to fund it, but which would be kind of cool because they've actually done a great job in North Kansas City. They're actually overfunding transportation for their size. They're doing a great job with the density and a lot of neat things with their complete streets and all that stuff. So it would make complete sense to take it up north. So that's what the study's for. And thing is streetcars are expensive. And so it's just a matter of getting it done. And one thing we've been very fortunate here in Kansas City, I know we beat up politicians a lot, but we've got a very, very good congressional delegation here in Kansas City. I mean, we really do. I mean, from the Kansas side to Missouri, Republican, I mean, they're well positioned, and we have benefited from having such solid representation in Kansas City. So that's all the politics you'll ever hear from me, but they really have done a great job. I mean, we got the streetcar money a year ahead of time, fully funded because of Sam Graves. And so you got to do that. We got the Prospect Max money because of Jay Moran. and Roy Blunt pushed it through when Trump came in office. He basically said anything Obama did, we're not going to do. And they stepped up to the plate and said, well, you may be, but we got this $60 million project in Kansas City and it affects our region and you got to push through. So you got to tip your hat those folks.
Ken had a second question. Do the various communities and cities involve you in their strategic goals and planning?
Not all. I mean, because even though we have these tools, we don't go where we're not wanted. We don't supersede any municipal authority or anything like that. If we were to do a project, Ken, it doesn't go through all the city approvals, planning, any kind of incentives that they want to go through. So we just don't go up somewhere and say we're building something tough. No, the whole idea is, like I said, we facilitate development. So, for example, with 30 grand, we worked on it for almost 3 years, Ryan and I, and we got our deal together. We worked with the city to make the parameters, all the movements, but they're still going to go through, EDC, they're still going to go through planning, they still get their ordinances approved. So, on that end, we don't oversee it. There's no like federal overreach on that. These are just tools they can use. Now we have had in Kansas City, Kansas, the new mayor, I had a few meetings with Mayor Garner, and we are preparing a county-wide TOD plan for the county at his request that I'll be presenting to their commissioners. But again, they asked us to do it. We're never going to go in and say you need to do whatever. I'm a big proponent of federalism, so I do want to make sure that and that was a question when we started doing this was, are you guys going to come and just build stuff? Like, nah, it doesn't work that way. If we got to the project, we work with the project, but it always has to go through. And what we always do, we have a committee, a 4-person committee, 2 from Kansas, 2 from Missouri. Whenever we think to do any sort of major development, these are 2 folks who are elected officials on both sides. So we run it by them first and say, okay, here's the idea. What are your thoughts? And then they kind of, I won't say troubleshoot, but kind of make sure we get the right place. Then we let the people know from the cities that this has been brought up and they're thinking about doing it. So like I said, the way we design is very transparent to make sure that there's no backdoor, anything like that.
I actually had a question.
Yes.
You mentioned something earlier, the KCATA has the authority to condemn properties. Is that what you said? I was curious about that.
Yes, it does. It does.
Explain it a little better.
Yeah. For example, on 35th and Prospect, there's 4 corners we call a hot corner. So there's a lot of crime and different things. And we are working on a project with the Palestine Baptist Church. They're wanting to build a senior center. They got funds from the Central City sales tax and a private developer. And we found that when we built the Prospect Max line, where the stop should have gone, we couldn't because there was a liquor store called Big D's Liquors that was basically, ground zero for drugs, crime, prostitution. And we partnered with the city of Kansas City, Missouri, basically said, we want to buy this, made an offer. And eventually they were like, we don't know. And then we said, okay, we're going to invoke our power to condemn property because it was designated as a hot corner and it wasn't really good for the community. And so we took the money, we bought it out, and it takes about a year from start to finish to get the property condemned. So we don't just, like I said, we don't randomly just go like, we like that property. It's not a takings. It's a process. I mean, we offer to buy it, go through, and they're usually pretty understanding. If we're going to do it, we're not doing it alone. Usually the city partners with us. And at that point, there's the police, KCPD has a program, I'm playing escapes right now, but they can identify certain properties, places, things that just are so past, I don't say past redemption, but which makes it easy to try to get rid of different things. And the neighbors love it because now by tearing down that building, we're going to build a senior center. We've got a potential developer on that corner that has a $250 million to invest, where we just bought an old Safeway. So you're probably looking at, when it's all said and done, another $300 million of investment coming to that corner that would have never come before. And so it allows us to really used judiciously, it allows you to do some things that just haven't been done because when you got the federal compact behind you, there's things you can do that the private sector just can't do, which goes back to my point of we can take the best of public and the best of private and do some things that need to be done.
David Dixon says, what is the long-term plan to extend the streetcar line across the new Buck O'Neill Bridge?
That's the question. I don't know the answer to that one.
As a fellow Northlander, I want to know that too. So.
What's that?
I'm a fellow Northlander, so yeah, I'm curious.
No, it's there's always the question, how far north we're going to go. The streetcar, if it went further north than say North Kansas City, it wouldn't be a streetcar anymore. They'd probably go to what's called light rail, a lot faster, above ground, more train-like, I guess, than the streetcar. But the biggest hindrance, as anything, is just cost. How do you fund it? I'm not insane enough to go, hey, let's raise more taxes. That's not going to fly. So we think though that this infrastructure bill, there's a lot of money in there that if we're smart as a region, we can get a lot of stuff done right now at this thing. Speaking to the Buck O'Neill Bridge, I mean they're looking at different tools for that, but that we're not. AT's not involved in that. That's really MoDOT and the city. We're not really touching that at any level. That's why I don't know enough. I don't know as much I probably should know because that's just not in our wheelhouse. Apologies, David. I know guys at MoDOT I can find out, but that's just not something we've been focused on besides personal interest. I like to gate 670 myself, but that's more my thing. But then as far as the Northland Transit question, though, Rose, I mean, the thing about the Northland is, obviously some of that's Kansas City. The challenge is just the way it's laid out. It's not designed for density, for like mass public transit. You're going to see, if anything, more what we call flex transit, micro transit, maybe connections off of existing fixed route lines, but it's more of a workforce issue up north just because there's so many people that have cars, different things. It's how do you get workers to some of these logistic parks that massive one that's just coming up. I think it might be Facebook, I don't know, that's coming, all the people that are growing up there. The logistics parks, I think the FBI is coming to the airport, close to the airport, people working at the airport. It really becomes a workforce issue. And that's where we do most of our work north of the river is with like the EDCs, Clay County, Platte County, doing a lot of work with Northland Neighborhood Initiative. I think it's an institute with Deb Herman. We are doing a lot of work over there, Worlds of Fun, looking at what we call a CID around it with the circulator. We're working with Tony Reinhardt over at Ford to try to get this model in Cass County up that way. So a lot of our stuff is workforce really, more so than what I would consider like residential transit, because most of the residents have access to cars. And, we've been asked why can't we have a max line north of the river? Because to get federal funds, you got to have 3,500 riders a day, and there just aren't that many riders north of the on any fixed route.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
I've got a question. I know that my name is Sam Davidson. Nice to meet you, Frank. The current streetcar development that's coming south and is going to end down at the UMKC campus approximately, we're sitting very, very close to or right on top of probably some of the old Brookside Country Club Dairy right away that goes further south. It used to go clear out to a little town called Dodson or 85th and Holmes area. Are there any future plans to extend that line any further south? Are there any discussions about that? And who still owns this country club right away? Does the city own it? Does KCATA own it? Does the land bank own it? I was just curious if in my lifetime I'll ever see it extended back to where it was when I grew up as a kid, clear back in the 60s. It came all the way to 85th and Holmes, basically.
How old are you?
Willie Lanier, 63. I put on Frank's birthday, the 20th.
Yeah, maybe my granddaughter's grandkids will see it extended. I don't know. I mean, there's always been discussions, about extending it, and In the last election, when they passed the TDD for the extension of the plaza, I don't know if you guys recall, there was another ballot issue shortly after. I think it was called Question 1, and it read like you were supporting tax development districts, but it really was opposed to that. And what it did, it passed, and it basically says any votes for any further city funds into streetcar expansion, the entire city has to vote on it now, instead of just the development districts, because the criticism was, how can, say, 700 people have the right to make a decision that the city's got to pay millions of dollars of city money to? So the challenge would be to, as far as extending it, so you've got to have a citywide vote now. And it might be a heavy lift to expect the entire region or city of Kansas City to vote for something that might affect a small section of the city. That's not my perspective there. I think that if people choose to tax themselves, that's their business, that's their right. But the opposition was basically, but that's fine, but why the city had to pay the taxes for it? Now that could be legally challenged, I'm sure, what have you, but that's gonna be your biggest issue, because you gotta have a local match to get any kind of federal funding. And the city can provide the local match, then the feds won't activate the funding to be used. So that's kind of the challenge. It doesn't mean it can't be overcome, sir, but that's what you're looking at as far as any further extension south. The right of way, we used to own it. Now the city has it back now, so that they've got control of the right of way down at that point. So I think that was all of your questions. There's a study going on 39th Street from east west to see about streetcar, but it's just a matter of who's got the best lawyers, I guess.
Yeah, do you partner at all with the land bank to identify property that they own that could possibly be acquired by you to enable you to go into places that, because I think a lot of that land bank property could be acquired fairly reasonably at a cost standpoint, because some of it's like you had the one there that wasn't
we do a lot of work
desirable.
A lot of the properties in the Prospect Corridor, actually, the land bank came to the ATA and offered to give it to us in some cases for free. In some cases, we pay for property because they knew we'd go in and stage it and do it in a way that would prevent speculators coming in and displacing people. So we work a lot with the land bank and the brownfield properties. In fact, the new chair of the land bank, LaDonna Gooden, is someone we worked with a lot before she got to the land bank, and now we're going in and buying sometimes trying to acquire city blocks to stage, like the Safeway that we purchased on 36th and Prospect. Behind it is a church, like 6 or 7 property the church owns, that we're looking to possibly do a deal with the church to basically control that block. And the reason we want to do that is we've got the old liquor store, the senior center, we've got potentially 150 new housing units. We get the Safeway, we control that block, all this stuff's a gas station that they want us to buy, but that's another story. But we're trying to, like I said, densify that area, build housing people can afford, off transit. And when you do that, you get more attention, more engaged people, the crime rate goes down. So we're very strategic in the properties that we acquire, just because, again, it's a quarter we control, but that land, there's just things, because we're tied to a federal agency, there's just hits we can absorb that the private sector just wouldn't want to, and I would not encourage them to take the hit, but there's just some built-in stuff that we can do that makes it easier for the private money to make their performance make sense and then want to keep doing stuff over there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that's it. If nobody has any other questions, thank you very much, Frank. We very much appreciate you coming in.
No, thanks for having me. You guys have a good day and enjoy the nice weather.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice job.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us online. This will be up on our website soon. So thank you very much. Everybody wave. Say bye. There you go.